Welcome to the Boston's Big Four podcast. Cast. New news about music and sports every week, sometimes.
So
I'm ready.
All right, we're back. Another episode of Boston's Big Podcast. We have a very special guest with us. Wrenn is here, known for his punk record label, obviously, and then Sully's brand, which he used to help fund the punk record label, and he now has a book about it called Fenway Punk out now, pretty much everywhere, right?
Yeah, it's pretty accessible.
Okay, awesome. And admittedly, I am not super familiar with the punk scene. I know you worked with a lot of New York bands, a lot of Boston bands. But what I do know about you is the t-shirts. I heard in a podcast I was listening to earlier that you were outside Fenway Park. You said every game from 2000 to 2013.
I think it was 2017. Yeah,
2017.
Ooh, we probably crossed paths a few times.
I bought this off of you.
Yeah, it's awesome.
So, you started in 2000 with that, and we were 7 years old in 2000. And I can remember some of my earliest memories, leaving Fenway Park and just seeing those t-shirts out there. And I was thinking about it earlier when I was looking at some of your old shirts. I remember specifically asking my mom one time when we walked by your stand, what is a wine cooler? Because you had Jeter drinks wine coolers on one of the shirts. And then there were also some shirts that my mom was not a fan of, obviously, being the mother of a 7-year-old at the time. But just iconic what you were able to start in that sense. And you saw the Yankees Suck shirts everywhere around that time. And it was really the perfect time to start it because the rivalry was at its peak. I would say that was the best that it ever was at that time. So I guess my first question is, obviously you were big into the music, and then you chose this as an avenue to fund that. How long were you passionate about Boston sports before you started this t-shirt company?
So, I went to my first Red Sox game when I was 10 in 1986. So, I've been a Red Sox fan since I was a little kid, since I was in Little League. Mostly Red Sox. Being a fan of the Celtics and Bruins came a little later. But from when I was like a little kid, I was a huge Red Sox fan.
Awesome. And then obviously, when did the music thing start for you?
So I was probably 15 maybe when I first went to see like a punk band in a small and just loved it. Prior to that, any live music I had seen would have been in like a much bigger, auditorium or like a civic center type place. And, you're so far removed from the band. Going to a show and seeing a punk band play in like a VFW hall or like a church basement or like some like DIY hardcore punk, space.
Denny's.
At Denny's, true. They pop up anywhere. We even have shows in our warehouse here at the Bridge 9 Sully's warehouse. But like having that be so close to you it's like such a cool feeling. You feel really connected to the music and I started going to shows regularly as a teenager. Started my record company, Bridge 9, when I was 19, and just never looked back.
So started at 19, though, that's, in my opinion, early. So how did you know what to do at that stage? Like when you knew, I imagine, maybe the year leading up to it, you had been floating the idea. So when you officially got around to starting it, what were those first actions? Like, did you know a band personally, or did you just kind of start reaching out to people with the idea? Or do you know someone who actually did this before and that's where you got the blueprint? Is that, sorry, I'm throwing a lot of questions, but I'm just curious, like at 19, I wouldn't have known even close. Like, what am I doing there?
Those are all great questions. And the thing with the hardcore punk scene is very do-it-yourself. Like the shows are booked by teenagers. The bands are a lot of them are teenagers. It's a very young scene, but it's very hands-on. So there's a lot of examples of people doing things that you can see like and right in front of you, and be inspired by that. So when I decided that I wanted to put out a record on and like start a label, it wasn't even really so much starting a label. I just wanted to help my friends make a record.
Mm.
And, the first band I worked with were kids that went to my high school. Um, they were people that I knew personally. And, it was like they were just friends. So there was not a lot of pressure.
Mm.
One of the members of the band had released a 7-inch record like on his own already, and I knew other people that had done it. But yeah, the reality is there's not really, and there certainly wasn't in the mid '90s, a guide to like how to put out a record by yourself. And anything that I saw, like how to start a record label in like book form, it was not. Um, it really didn't explain it in a way that I think a 19-year-old kid could make sense
Mm.
of it. So I just started asking questions, like other people that had done it before. I reached out and just said, "Hey, where do I start?" And within I don't know 6 months, was able to kind of like piece together enough of a start to like get started.
Nice. So like in that first band, did they maybe refer you to the next one, or did you know it was going to be something from that first time, or was there a period where I imagine, like you're saying, there wouldn't necessarily be like a set of steps that you could look up, especially early internet days. Now you can they give you the full breakdown to your specific scenario, it seems like, and
Yeah.
everyone's done what you've tried to do. There's threads on it and everything. So when you found like what was in front of you as a 19-year-old, were you sort of just navigating like, all right, this is probably what they'll need, or this is what I think would happen next, and the tangible things right in front of you, you're sort of carving through and just it's making it work, I guess, is being adaptable instead of just following a set of rules, like you said, you really just kind of carved it out.
Yeah, I mean, so the first record, it was a group effort with the band. They paid for the recording themselves. It was probably like 4 or 5 of the guys just scraped together some money to get some studio time. Probably recorded. It was only a handful of songs, so they probably were in the studio for a few days tops. Um, I helped them get the record manufactured and pressed at a pressing plant and got the covers designed, and then we helped assemble them and make them available for them to take to shows. But it was just again, kids that I went to high school with. Nope, not a lot of pressure. That first record I ended up offering to do because they had lost their singer. The guy that had originally started the band with them as their vocalist I think he was kind of unceremonially kicked out of the band. So the
Tales
guitar
old as time,
player,
right?
yeah, exactly. So the guitar player started singing. They wanted to get something out really quickly so that they would have a record now that actually had the current vocalist. So that's where I came in. Um, Took about a year to earn the money back, that I put into it, to sell the 1,000 records that I made. And by the time I was, winding down on that first record, the band broke up. But they had already demoed new songs. And I thought it was a shame that those songs were not going to be officially released. So even after the band broke up, my second release was just, 3 more songs from the same band. Um, that I put out and did a really limited pressing. It was like 500 copies or something. Initially, actually, I think the first pressing was just 300 copies, just so that I could, make it real, I
Hmm.
guess.
So you mentioned these are 7-inch records. These are actual records.
Yeah. So for people that don't know, like the standard LP, like an album, is a 12-inch record,
Hmm.
and 7-inch records are singles. So like they're like if you ever see like an old school jukebox and they've got like the little records in them, those are 7-inch records. And that was a format that was really popular, for jukeboxes because you could, put a couple songs on it and put it in a jukebox back in the day. But punk bands love them because you could put anywhere from 2 to 10 songs on it, and they were relatively cheap to make back in the 70s, 80s, and 90s. Um, so bands would stuff as many songs as they could on them and then sell them at shows. I mean, this is in the
Hmm.
90s. It was like you could buy a record for $3. So, it was a easy way for someone to take a chance on a new band.
Okay. So I imagine at this point, tape is around. Is that more expensive to do? So, or is this like for the specific use case you guys wanted
Or
the records?
yeah, like for cassettes, I mean, like
Yeah.
a Yeah, so cassettes were what a band would often do, like their demo. They'd make like a demo cassette, and then those were pretty commonly available. But
Okay.
when a band started to get a little momentum, when you're a punk band or a hip hop band, it was a big deal in the '90s to press your music on vinyl.
Okay.
That was the traditional format. The pressing plant that I was using in the '90s was almost exclusively pressing hip hop records and punk records. And
Hmm.
then I think like they were in Nashville, so like Elvis records, but they were really being kind of buoyed by hardcore and punk and hip hop. So it's just a really common format. And again, they were cheap to make and cheap to sell. So, people would collect them. It was just kind of like a more tangible thing.
Awesome. And that obviously has grown. It seemed like
I was
when we
gonna
were
say,
kids, there was a time where people were like, yeah, records are like 4 mediums ago. But now everyone wants records. I know people who decorate their walls with records like on a monthly basis. They like rotate it with the feels and whatnot. So
Yeah.
it's
yeah.
I mean, that's more of a decoration thing, but a lot of people do listen to records. It's a real
No,
thing.
record stores are huge. There's been a resurgence, I feel like.
I mean, we have a record store. There's 6 record stores between Beverly and Salem. So our store is located in Beverly. There's 4 places that sell records in Beverly and 2 more in Salem. So and we all kind of have our own lanes. So, we're more the punk rock record label kind of side of the spectrum. There's a label I'm sorry, a store. There's a record store that does a lot of really cool hip hop that's up here. A couple of used record stores where you really have to dig and you never know what you're going to find. But yeah, it's cool that there's so much out there and so much interest.
Yeah,
When
and
did
I
you see?
also oh, sorry, go
Go
ahead.
ahead.
No, you go
Oh,
ahead.
when did you see like the resurgence of records? Because like Owen said, it felt like a time when we were kids where it was looked at as something of the past. CDs were the new thing. Before that, it was cassettes. Like what happened in the last, I don't know, 10 or so years that all these record stores are popping up all of a sudden?
Yeah, I think it's because with everything going digital, there is a nostalgia and people want something that is tangible, something that they can hold. I have a 14-year-old daughter and she has a digital camera from the mid 2000s and loves it. I mean, she could take
That's
Yeah.
coming back too. Yeah.
yeah, she can take like super high res photos with her iPhone, but like she wants to, if we go see a band play, she wants to take photos with her like half a megapixel digital camera
I
because
love that.
yeah, there's like just like not, I mean, it's not just nostalgia for her because this is from before her time, but it's like part of a time that I think she thinks is cool.
Yep.
They say the
Yeah,
old stuff always comes back around,
it
right?
does. It
You
does.
know,
The
the
90s are very
styles.
popular right now.
Yeah.
People do love analog. I think like in digital was a flashy thing for a while, and as time has gone on, a lot of people are kind of realizing that digital, as good as it is really just emulating analog as best as it can. At least for music, this is like I know that is a whole philosophy of like, are you recording digitally or analog? A lot of hip hop stuff is it's really easy to do in the box, but um, just a lot of things. I mean, I've even heard people say tech people in general are not Wi-Fiing their lives. They're going back to just physical things. Just because like we were saying before, it's tangible. It's right in front of you. You know what it is. You can enjoy it the same way. And this is a slightly tinfoil hat comment, but some of these digital things can be edited on the platform. So if the version that you heard before, it might not be, you might not ever find it again. It might just be taken off or taken down or changed
Yeah,
in a way that
turned off.
yeah, so I think physical media is huge. It's really important, and I actually think people who have DVDs and VHSs, CDs at home, digitize that too. You're allowed to do that, by the way. That a lot of people think that's pirating. You can make copies of what you have. Just keep them digital and have them physical. Perfectly safe. I'm rambling a little bit. And I did have one tangent I wanted to at least get off my head because it's going to bug me the rest of the podcast. It's not relevant to really anything, but to any One Piece fans out there, we've mentioned punk records 1,000 times, and we will probably say it a few more. I clocked it. I don't know if you guys know One Piece at all. It's just, there's a thing, punk records. It's a spoiler. I can't really talk about it if people don't want to hear the spoilers. But if you're a One Piece fan and you've been hearing that, I clocked it. That's all. I just wanted to make sure I said that.
All right. Over my head.
Oh, sorry, you go.
Well, I just wanted to. So I used to make music a lot more, but as you were describing the punk scene, it seems like it parallels the hip hop scene a lot.
Yeah, it does in a
Um,
lot of ways.
yeah, like you know, a lot of against the system stuff. Even just like Jack was talking about it when the three of us were talking before the show. Um, I wore this shirt the first show I ever performed at. Jack performed with me, and it was
Your
in a
kid.
moose. It was in a moose lodge in Plymouth, and there was
Plymouth,
like it was teenagers that put it together,
Yeah,
like same exact kind of stuff.
yeah.
Um, and I don't know, maybe that's why. Like I did. I mean, I've had this shirt that was back in 2011, so this shirt's got to be almost 20 years old.
Easily.
Uh, but I laugh because as Jack said, some of the shirts. So my father, crazy as it sounds, he's from Braintree. He's a Yankee fan.
Okay.
So
So
annoying.
he definitely did not want me buying this shirt.
Yeah.
He watches the podcast, so when he sees this, he's definitely gonna be like, "Of course you had to wear the shirt." Blah blah blah. But I remember being about 7 years old, and we were walking behind one guy that was wearing one of the shirts, and I go, "Dad, what does Jeter Swallows mean?"
I remember
And
asking the same thing.
and my dad's like, "I'll tell you when you're older." And I was like, "What is he like?" I was 7 years old. I'm like, I was like determined to figure it out. And like we were at a game, and I was like, that had my focus like the rest of the night. I'm like, I want to know what those shirts are. And then
And weren't there
that
birds on the
started.
shirt too?
What'd you say?
Weren't there like swallow? Am I making this up? Were there birds on the shirt like actual like swallows?
No,
No.
this was just
No.
Yankees Suck,
It
and then
just
it
says
was
that.
#2 and Jeter Swallows on the
Oh
back.
yes,
There,
yes,
there,
yes, yes, yes. Okay,
there,
okay,
there
okay.
might have been. I mean, there was, there was a lot of that stuff out there.
Yeah.
But did you start the Jeter Swallows phrase? Because
No,
I
no.
remember.
That was
No?
that was my group of friends
Okay.
were responsible for that, but
Okay, because I remember being at a game during that time and seeing those shirts, and obviously the Yankees Suck chants would happen all the time, and then there were Jeter Swallows chants going on at the same time around that time. So, I feel like your shirts had a big cultural impact on like the whole Red Sox fandom.
that second shirt, that was probably some random person that made that.
Yeah.
Okay,
So, but what I meant to finish with was just that 7-year-old or 8-year-old me, whatever, whoever saw that shirt, I was determined from that day on. I was like, when I'm older, I know those guys are outside after the game. I'm buying some shirts, and
yeah,
I don't know how many shirts I bought. I had the LeBron shirt. LeBron is a bitch. I had that one. Um,
Some
oh
of the shirts went hard. I mean, and
yeah,
we
Oh,
kind of
I had.
we definitely mellowed out. I mean, as we got older and as we got more involved, but there's still people out there selling shirts that go real hard that are a new generation.
Yeah.
yeah. Now,
Did you do the one that was LeBron went south, but his mom rides west? Was that you?
That was probably my roommates. They had a couple that were
Okay.
like, yeah.
Okay. I grabbed one of those outside the garden
That
when I was
felt
like
like a
19.
deposition real quick. Like,
did
was this you?
Yeah, I mean,
so was
I definitely was. I mean, I made shirts that I'm not proud of. I think they were,
Yeah.
it was what it was at the time. But the reality was, especially at the Garden, you're at a game, it's 20 degrees out, and you've got like this short window of people leaving. You have to have something that like makes somebody stop and like laugh out loud. And
Yeah.
yeah.
unfortunately, it kind of like the bar just kept getting lowered and lowered. But there's
Great marketing.
I mean, we had a target audience,
Yeah,
You got me a couple times.
Yeah.
yeah.
I have a question about the logistics because somebody told me once that, and obviously you're here to squash this. They told me that the Yankees Suck shirts were actually made and distributed by the Yankees because that's their like name or whatever, and so they're the ones selling it, and that's how they make money off Red Sox fans. People told me that growing up. That's what I always heard. That's not
So
true. This was
so
you.
That's not true, but I can tell you, do you know who made the first Yankee Suck shirt?
I don't.
No.
It was a Yankees fan, and it was in
Ooh,
1978. So that
Wow.
was actually
interesting.
a fun fact. When I was researching and writing my book, I learned about a gentleman from New York City he was working at a screen printing like souvenir shop. I mean, this is like mid 70s, and he was selling "I Love New York," like the classic "I Love New York" shirts along Fifth Avenue, like just like t-shirt peddling back in the 70s. And Boston Sucks was the chant at Yankee Stadium in the 70s.
Now it's
And
the chant in Fenway Park today.
now it's just like so this guy, just like a regular t-shirt, vendor making like these souvenir t-shirts was like, you know what? I should make a Boston Sucks t-shirt and sell them at Yankee Stadium. And he did what we ended up doing, a generation later, but absolutely killed it, was selling Boston Sucks shirts like nuts. And he got the idea in 1978 to get a few of his buddies together and jump in the car with 1,200 of the first Yankees Suck t-shirts and come up to Fenway and work both sides of the fence and sell Yankees Suck shirts, and sold all of them I think it was before the end of Game 3. So
Wow.
during like that 78 Boston Massacre
Wow.
series.
Damn.
So yeah.
Hey, well, it's the right mark. I mean, that's the place to do it, right where the stadium is. So,
Yeah.
have you run into any issues with the licensing? Because I know, like, sometimes when there's that image and likeness stuff, like, are there fonts that people have come after you for or anything like that?
Not specifically. No, actually, yeah, we had a little bit of a problem with a font, at one point, but it's usually a player likeness. Like,
Okay.
I had this Damon is my homeboy T-shirt.
Oh
That's
yeah.
like the Jesus is my homeboy shirt.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Great shirt, super cheap to make.
Yeah.
Black ink on a white T-shirt. It's like the cheapest shirt you can make. We sold so many of them in 2004, and then like a fan was wearing it at a Yankees game, in the like the bleachers, and I think Damon was up, and they like the TV camera zoomed in on this fan, and you could like read the whole shirt. And within like 3 days, we got cease and desist letters from like the player's agent, from the players association, and from the brand that we were parodying. So like,
And that still doesn't fall under parody? Like, you got hit with that?
no, parody only works if you're not making money. So the
Oh,
second you start making money for it, like I don't know, do you ever see that dumb Starbucks?
yes, Nathan, for you. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's for you. I mean, it was like if he was selling the coffee, that would have been a problem, but because it was just like an art installation piece, I guess,
Yes, they were giving it
you
away.
can make fun. So
Interesting. Well,
That
like
makes sense.
I don't mean to like get philosophical here, but so like for example, South Park very like openly has used characters like, and they put that disclaimer at the beginning, but I'm like, in terms, and they claim parody, so I'm like, they're making money on that show. So how much can you parody and make money, or like, I'm not sure exactly.
So that's a great question. I think because, I mean, their product is it's a different form, I guess.
Okay.
Like if South Park was making, a physical product that you could buy in a store, it
Oh,
might
like
make,
an almost like one-to-one copy kind of a thing,
yeah.
maybe. I don't know.
I think it becomes more of like almost a First Amendment issue versus like a parody. So like, I can make a magazine making fun of the Yankees, and have like their logo on it, but I couldn't make a T-shirt in the same way. Like there's
Yeah.
like
Okay.
there's certain lanes that you can kind of exist in.
Damn,
And
we got
for
to get a
us, I mean,
lawyer on.
we would try to like you could try to connect the idea with like the fan, like you try to get something that resonates with them, but you want to use as few dots as possible,
Yeah.
because you don't want to like get tripped up over something that you didn't need. So we would try
Yeah.
to keep our designs pretty simple.
Yeah, fair enough. Well, you've done a great job with it. And the reason I asked about the fonts too is I've seen so many variations of that Red Sox font used in
Yeah.
other things. I'm like, I don't, do they own, they must own that. I don't know how
They
exactly that works.
so they
People
don't
tweak it slightly though, I feel like.
Yeah, so you can't really own a font so much as
Oh,
you
okay.
can own like I mean you can certainly own like a logo. So like you can't use Boston in that same font because that's a
Hmm.
trademark, and you can't use Red Sox in that same font because that's obviously a trademark. Typically, you can't trademark a city or a place like Boston. So I can make Boston shirts, but if I put it in the same font as the Red Sox, then that becomes a trademark issue. But if I just put it in, maybe a similar font and maybe have like the serifs go a different direction, which I think people do, then you're fine. But it's there's like a gray area you can exist in, and which we've existed in for a long time.
Well, yeah, I don't mean to pepper you with the legal questions, but I'm curious when I see a lot of that stuff because I know some people get away with it for a certain amount of time and then just, the hammer comes down or something. So
I mean,
it sounds like that's what happened with the Damon thing.
Yeah, we could have kept selling that shirt with no issue, and I mean, had it not been on the on TV. But
Yeah.
sometimes getting on TV is the best possible opportunity. I mean, we had a really good example of that. It was when we did the Joe Kelly Fight Club.
Oh yeah.
That was great.
2018, right? Like that was like a super popular kind of viral shirt for us. But that was an example where it went viral and it was huge because somebody, same thing. So, somebody bought it like the day, like the fight happened on a Wednesday. Thursday, we had the t-shirts down at the park and somebody bought it, wore it into the stadium, and like Nesson cameras zoomed in on him, showing off his shirt. And like every time Joe Kelly went up to pitch, I mean, he had been suspended at that point, but it was on appeal. So he was able to keep pitching for the next few days. And every time he got up, to pitch, they would show this like B-roll footage of this kid like wearing our shirt. And it was awesome,
Damn. So this fight happened on a Wednesday, and less than 24 hours later, you had shirts
I was
printed and
gonna say
designed
that's
and
crazy.
at the
Yeah.
park. How did
Yeah,
that was going to be my next question. What is the typical turnaround time? But you're pulling magic right now.
It's usually not that quick, but like at the time we had our own print shop in-house, and
Okay.
I was doing enough jobs in our own in-house print shop that I could bump whatever I wanted. So it's like, all right, we're doing this right now. And that's one of those things where it's an example of it. Having it right now made all the difference because we printed it, designed it, printed it, brought it to the stadium. All the magazine vendors, like when you go to a game, you see the guys yelling programs and selling the magazines on the street. They were all wearing the shirt for us to kind of help promo it. We've had a long relationship with them. So we had one vendor selling them on Lansdowne Street, in the shadow of the monster. And so basically if everyone was like, oh my God, I can't believe there's a shirt already. This happened last night, like not even, 15 hours ago. And they said, yeah, go grab one down there. And, sold a ton of shirts. It ended up being really cool because the whole Kelly family ordered shirts.
That's awesome.
And we connected with them when we realized that they were ordering the shirts. We're like, hey, do you want to use this shirt as part of your fundraiser? Because Joe Kelly, if you remember, like in 2018, he started the season kind of like not a fan favorite.
Yeah.
And instantly became like the mayor of Boston, for a while. So his wife Ashley at the time was like, all right, now's the time we start telling people about your charity and try and do some fundraising that way and use your popularity for good. So we said like, hey, it's so cool that you're like cool with our shirt and you're helping promote it and you bought it. Let's do something where we give a t-shirt to anyone that donates $50 or more to your charity. So for like the next 6 weeks, they would send us like a spreadsheet of all the people that made donations that were $50 or more with their address and t-shirt size. And we would just mail a shirt, like no strings attached. So it was awesome for their charity. It was awesome for us to have that connection with Joe. When we opened our section, we have like Sully's has like our own section at the Target next to Fenway Park. It's actually a bigger section than our own store down there.
No way.
And we had like a ribbon cutting, and Joe Kelly came and did like the ribbon cutting for us. So
That's awesome. Have there been any other instances where you've connected with a player through your merchandise?
Yeah, we had Malcolm Butler. We made a T-shirt in I think like 2015 that said the Butler did it.
Yeah.
After that Super Bowl, and we sold so many of them in like the first 3 days after the Super Bowl that I actually Googled like who is Malcolm Butler's agent and reached out to his agent and said, hey, we made this shirt for your, about your client. We're selling a ton of them. Can we give you money and like make it legit? Because we didn't want to get sued. We didn't want to have like a problem.
Right.
And they were like, yeah, we'll take money. And it ended up being great. Like we cut them a check, so they were happy. They got paid. We ended up doing a couple collaboration T-shirts where he had, had his signature on it. met up and did like a little photo shoot with him. So it was a cool like opportunity for us.
Yeah, and he was, people didn't know much about him before that interception.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that really put him on the map, and I'm sure he was thrilled to, have that kind of exposure all of a sudden.
Yeah.
So what do you remember about the first time you went outside Fenway Park to sell your t-shirts? Do you recall like that night and what happened?
Yeah, so the first time I went to Fenway to sell, so my roommates were the ones selling the t-shirts initially. I took it over within a few years, but when I went out there with them the first night, it was the like opening opening day week, of 2000,
Okay.
and I remember being like, what if nobody buys these? In fact, my girlfriend at the time was like, "What if?" She was like, "What if nobody buys his stickers?" Like it seemed a little,
What were
ridiculous.
you selling at that time?
So it was like Yankees Suck bumper stickers, and I think I think
Okay.
initially it was just, like these big Yankees Suck bumper stickers, um, and I had been selling things at punk rock shows with my little distro. Like I would have my records, I was selling stickers, t-shirts, things for bands. So I was accustomed to going someplace new, traveling out of town, setting up
Okay.
a booth and like, a little table and like selling stuff and just talking with people. Um,
Yeah.
but like, I spent some money, had all this product and didn't know what to expect, didn't know who I was going to face, if there was going to be competitors, cops, like, I mean, my girlfriend at the time was like, can you just do that? Can you just go down there and sell something on the street? Like, is that legal?
I was going to ask you that next.
Yeah, yeah, it's not. I mean, you have to you
Thought
have
so.
to have like a permit, and there's like certain hoops you have to jump through, and there's like certain parameters that you can kind of exist in.
Mm.
But I didn't know any of that, and I just went there and did it. And my friends, we went as a crew. I mean, there was probably a dozen of us that went down there to do this. And I remember just being like, "Fuck, I hope people, buy something." And somebody walked up, because I mean, people, when you're sitting there on the sidewalk and you're trying to sell something, like people are just walking right by you. They might like what you're selling, but they're not
Right.
stopping. But the second somebody stops, all of a sudden it's like, I don't know if you've ever heard of like Giuliani's broken glass, like broken window theory. He was like the mayor of New York, and the
Mm.
idea was, if there's a broken window, there will be more broken windows. So you got to replace the windows so that people
Mm.
don't see broken windows and don't like, like if there's like a riot and the first person to throw a rock is like rare, but the
Mm.
Mhm.
second person that saw somebody do it is like,
Yeah.
oh, people are throwing rocks, I'm gonna throw a rock, and now two
Yeah.
people are throwing. Now there's 10 people, and it like snowballs.
Yeah, I
The
know
same
about
thing
this.
happens with street vending. So like nobody wants to stop, but then once somebody does, then all of a sudden it's like, oh, that person stopped. I wonder what they're selling. I wonder. It must, you know, this must be interesting. And
Mhm.
I went from, having, no, like just a pocket full of or backpack full of stickers and no money, to walking home with like over $400,
Wow.
my first day doing this. And to give you like context, I mean, I was making maybe $350 or something every 2 weeks at my job.
Tax
I was
free.
working, yeah, but I mean, I was at my
Sorry.
job, yeah, at my job, I was working. Like, I used to work at Tower Records when it was on Newbury Street, and I was in their art department. So I was one of the people that was making like the art and the designs that would go in the windows and on the walls promoting albums. And a lot of that stuff was like hand painted and hand cut out with like razors, making all the letters and like pop out and stuff. And it was almost like an art form and not just promo materials. But I mean, it was like making like $7 an hour or something. So I didn't really walk home with much money after my day job. But in my first night of vending at Fenway, I was making almost, I don't know, 50% more in one
Mm.
day than I was in 2 weeks. So it was like, holy crap, this is awesome.
So did you ever get confronted by the cops?
Yeah, almost immediately. But it wasn't the cops that were it's the code enforcement police. So like
Okay.
there's like the cops, and then there's the code enforcement cops. And their responsibility, they're the ones that, like, if you're if you're a business and you don't shovel the snow in front of your store, or like
Yeah.
you're like putting up signs that you're not allowed to put up that aren't permitted. Like they have like a bunch of different responsibilities that they kind of keep an eye on in the city, and one of them is unpermitted vending. So they would be hired back then by Fenway as like a detail. So they're not hanging out around Fenway on the city's dime. Like they would, the Red Sox would hire them and say, all right, keep the street vendors, away from the park. And very quickly they zeroed in on us.
Mm-hmm.
Well, not to say, I mean, it sounds like in the initial days too, well, you eventually got permitted, so I'm glad that worked out. But those initial days, I imagine there's like much bigger operations I've heard of, people that come from like New York, they drive up with like tons of bootleg stuff and just like pull up wherever and then march it over to the street. It definitely happens. When Barbie was a thing, they were selling the Fenway Barbie shirts and everyone was wearing them. I thought we were selling them in the store. And one of the warehouse people was like, "No, yeah, this is like totally bootleg. They're here every day and like they pull up in like there's like a caravan of like Escalades that pull up and they just unload a bunch of stuff on the street." So it's an ongoing thing. It definitely still happens. But I'm sure they're trying to catch those guys more than just the person who wants to sell like some of the stuff they just printed, maybe.
For sure. And I mean the code enforcement guys, I mean they're local guys. They were even though some of them were dicks, they were still they could still be cool. And the reality was, and my experience was, if they knew you and you were local and you were like trying to do it right and you were not, not being a dick, that you would have a little more flexibility. And they were definitely always gunning for the people that were coming from out of town. I would see the New York guys, but they never came for games. They would come to like the parade, in 2004, they were there. They would come to concerts, right? So like Jimmy Buffett, that was an example that I remember clearly. We were making T-shirts and selling them at Red Sox games, but when they started having concerts at Fenway, we're like, all right, cool. We'll just like make T-shirts that kind of do what we do with sports, but we'll do it for the concert. We're not going to make like a counterfeit shirt, but we'll make something like a Yankees Suck shirt isn't a counterfeit shirt. It's like its own thing, right? Like
Yeah.
before us, a lot of the vendors selling T-shirts at Fenway were counterfeiters. They would just make like a Red Sox shirt and just sell it for cheaper, And when we started doing stuff, it was more like things that were for fans of the Red Sox, but it wasn't like it wasn't meant to be considered a Red Sox shirt. It was just something that like, resonated with Red Sox fans.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But like the
100%.
New York guys, they would come just full on counterfeits. And I remember when Jimmy Buffett played, they came with like these garbage bags full of like tie-dye shirts with like full color graphics of like the Green Monster wall with parrots all over them. And it's just like how like the level that they were working on was just so much higher than any of my friends or anyone that was doing what we were doing.
Yeah, they probably even build in a couple of bailouts just to be like, we're doing this anyways. So oh man, I lost my train of thought on that one. We were just talking about the stuff on the street, people from New York. I did actually, so the censorship kind of part of it, I know the Yankees suck. There's a Yankees stink as well, right? That's still you guys?
No, we never did Yankee Stink. I think.
Oh, I've seen that on the onesies or like the baby ones.
That might have been, there was a brand, Chowder Heads, that I think would do like stuff like that.
Okay.
The thing that to recognize, and we realized, we learned it very quickly, was everyone has access to a screen press. So anytime, even back then, anytime a shirt would pop off, especially like Yankees Suck, there would be derivative versions of it made everywhere. So like you would go into like like a gas station and they'd be selling Yankee Suck shirts, and it looked like a shirt that like my crew of friends would be selling, but it was just like a knockoff.
Makes sense. And do you guys have any claim on that? Like, can you be like, this is our shirt, or how
No,
exactly does it?
That was public domain. I mean, it existed before us. There's
Okay.
a proud tradition of this happening, and Yankee Suck shirt. I mean, again, like the first guy that I know of to do it was in the mid '70s. So he was doing his own thing. But what like my friends can claim is like the shirt you're wearing. Dave. Like that's like the kind of iconic Yankees Suck
Oh yeah.
shirt people know and remember.
Mm.
Yeah.
And it's a lot of people that see that don't even realize how that design like came to be. And I mention it in my book, but like that like kind of like the text with it like knocked out of like the rectangle, that's based on a fanzine, like an old like 80s era hardcore punk fanzine called Boiling Point. And it was like a New York based fanzine, and their logo had that style, like that style. So when the guy that
Ah,
put that design together, it was inspired by this old punk rock fanzine. So like there's guys now selling shirts that look like that, but it's not that font, and it's close
Yeah. I've
collegiate, but
seen
not.
some. Yeah, I've seen
Yeah,
some that are like basically similar, but you can tell the font's a little
yeah, and
different.
like
Yeah.
and the guys like the Fenway brothers that are selling T-shirts outside of Red Sox teams now, they sell like that kind of knockoff design. And they've kind of like they're good guys. They do their own thing. They used to sell shirts for me back in the day when they were younger, and now they're kind of doing their own thing. But it's the influence of stuff that I was doing, and my friends were doing in the early 2000s, kind of lives on elsewhere. We still exist doing our own thing, but like there's a new generation
Mm.
that's kind of taking the ball and run with it a little bit.
Do
yeah.
you do any print work for them if they need stuff done, or do you do stuff for other people? For example, we might need some T-shirts, so you might be
Sure.
getting a call from
Yeah.
us.
Yeah. We've sold stuff to those guys outside of Fenway. We make stuff for other brands, other podcasts. Right now we're doing all the merch for the Section 10 podcast.
Mm.
Um,
Oh,
so
that's
Oh, you
awesome.
talked to him, right? Yeah.
yeah,
Well,
yeah. So
he used to work for you, right?
he did. Yeah.
Carabas?
Yeah. Carabas was an
I just learned that today.
Me
16-year-old
too. Yeah.
Carabas was working for you.
It was it's been so cool seeing because I mean when I met that kid, the passion that he had for the Red Sox
Oh
was
yeah.
just unmatched, and to see this kind of like 20-year arc that he's had has been very very cool. So yeah, so I actually published his first book, or I think his only book. He wrote a book in 2009 and
Yep.
published it under the Sully's brand. We made like 1,000 copies and set up like in stores at like Newbury Comics and stuff for him. And it was very cool. So then now that I've got my own book, I mean he's come right back, and aside from doing merch, he moderated my first two book events, which was super cool. Did that really great video. They like him and Mike made like a 15-minute mini doc about like the
I
book,
saw that. Yep.
which is incredibly cool of them to do that. So
Yeah, no, it's awesome to see what he's accomplished. I mean, I from when he was in Barstool to before that, the book you're talking about, I think it was called "If This Hat Could Talk," right?
yep, yep,
Yeah, I remember hearing about that when it came out, and it's just like his obsession with the Red Sox. It never wavered. He was always just that was him. That was his personality. Was the Red Sox. So
yeah,
it's cool to see what he's accomplished.
yeah. He's a real one. Like he's been the same consistent person ever since I
Yeah,
met him. So
that's awesome.
You mentioned that you did the design for like the displays at Tower Records. So you design all these yourself, or do you have somebody else that helps you design?
So for most of the Sully's brand products, I design them. We've had some collaborations and we've had some other artists do one-offs for us, but for the most part, most everything I've been the one doing it.
That's
So
pretty
did
awesome.
so when you like when in the record label, are you designing the albums too? Like doing all the
So
album design and stuff?
For for the record label, I'll do a lot of the nuts and bolts design. So like a lot of times the band will work with an artist to design like an album cover. And
Yeah.
they'll like come up with like a piece of art and they'll say, "All right, here's the cover." And then I'll be the one oftentimes like a lot of the time to basically all right, say, "All right, cool, we'll put the logo here, we'll put the title here." I'll do all the inside design, thanks lists and add the photos. Um, Not
Okay.
always, and I haven't not. I mean, we've put out over 300 releases, and it's I wouldn't say it's the lion's share of them, but it's I'm usually the when it comes to Bridge 9, I'm more of like the technical, like all right, we've got like the like these couple pieces. Now we need to make it work.
Yeah, makes sense. You seem like the well, very clearly like the business savvy side. I that's something I lacked in the when I was making music. My the groups that I was with, we never thought about the business side. We just like making the music and having fun, you know?
It's tough. I mean, because like oftentimes it's not the same person, right? Like you need, I've met incredible artists that have, and like painters and designers that like have trouble monetizing their art because, they're really super creative, but they don't know how to make the right product to like
Mm.
and be able to
Exactly.
market it. So like you need a little bit of both.
I mean, I had some friends that couldn't even make like a Facebook artist page,
Yeah.
you know, and it's like simple. It's like 101. I feel
Yeah.
like, um, but and so I was I was watching something earlier. Was Death Before Dishonor? Was
Yeah.
that part of your label?
Yeah, so we signed Death for Dishonor in 2004,
Okay.
put out their second record in 2005, and we put out their most recent album last year. So we've been working with them for over 20 years. Um,
Wow.
great, great guys. I mean, great band.
Yeah, I've seen them. Don't they tour with like? Or weren't they recently touring with like Kill Switch Engage or something like that? Or
Possibly, I don't know specifically if it was with Killswitch Engage, but I mean they tour a lot. Like that's one of the best things about working with that band is they are just road dogs. I mean, they're any opportunity to tour. And funny story about Death for Dishonor. So they I paid for their first recording on Bridge 9 with like Yankee Suck money, right? Like I paid for the
wow, yeah,
deposit. Literally went from Fenway, took the money, went and then paid the producer for that first record. Um, and they at the time were kind of a local band, South Shore band from Brockton, had never really played more than a week of shows tops, probably doing like 3-day weekends here and there. Um, and I was sending care packages of CDs to a magazine in Germany, actually no, in Holland. And the guy that I was sending him to had like a big festival, and he was connected to some of the music promoters over there. And this band Terror, who I've also worked with, dropped off as a support for Agnostic Front, which is like this, for those who don't know, like a classic New York hardcore band. They're like the godfathers of New York hardcore, like the first generation really of New York hardcore. And they were gonna take Terror. Terror dropped off. They needed a band to fill Terror's spot. And I had just sent that first Terror record that we had just made it and sent this guy a copy. And he's like, can they fill Terror's spot? And Terror was already an established band, so this was like a big jump for them. And this is a band that had never played more than a handful of shows on the East Coast in a row, and now
yeah.
they're getting an opportunity to go to Europe for 6 weeks. And these are guys that
Wow.
none of them had passports, and we had like 2 weeks notice because it was all
Awesome.
last minute. So they had to like fast track, passports and
2 weeks is still pretty fast, though.
it's
Even
really fast. I mean, you're like talking to like city councilors and like
oh
state
my
reps
god.
to try and make this happen.
Okay.
They get it. They go on tour. And, they're crushing it. I mean, really stepping up to the plate. They become tight on this tour with Agnostic Front. They really like them. Agnostic Front was doing 6 weeks in Europe to support a new album, and then they were going to do 6 weeks in the U.S. And the next thing they find out, oh, hey, one of the bands that's on our US leg is dropping off. We need a band to cover them. Do you want to keep going? So they basically went from being a band that had never played more than like a handful of shows to doing 12 weeks with like arguably Agnostic Front is a band that if not for Agnostic Front, there would be no Death for Dishonor.
Mm.
So like these are like legends to these guys. So to be able to have that opportunity was just absolutely wild.
That's
So
incredible.
kind of a tangent, but um,
Oh
yeah,
no, go off.
Not at all. Yeah,
That's
that's the type of
awesome.
stuff we want to hear. That is super interesting, and you facilitated the whole thing. So how I mean, you got to have a million stories like that. So what? How exactly did you ever make music yourself, or play music, or be a part of any of this?
No, so I was, you know, I had ADHD. I don't think I could. I didn't have the focus to learn an instrument when I was younger.
Mm,
I didn't consider myself, or maybe I was just too shy. Not that I'm a shy person, but I'm not an extrovert,
mm.
So
Mhm.
I wasn't going to be the singer of a band. Um, and I just wanted to be involved. So, I had like side hustles from when I was like 13 years old. So like I was always trying to do something to make money. And, not that I do Bridge 9 to make money, but I do, you learn a lot of things to like, be able to create opportunity
Mm.
for your bands and then for the label to be able to continue to grow. Um, so
Yeah.
it
To
just became
quote Rob Crean, a guy we had on the podcast, he said, "Money doesn't create happiness, but it gives you all the tools you need to be happy." So it sounds like, yeah, it's,
yeah.
but
Well,
those things to be able to play your role, you knew, and that's the thing where like there. Sorry to cut you off, to insert this thought of you wear a lot of hats. So you're the designer, you're printing things, you're selling things. You do and play your role very well. And I think like that is also a very key thing. Like you can't do everything. Not everyone can do everything. So like an artist is sometimes just an artist. And not just an artist, but I mean like they do the art and somebody else does the business and helps them facilitate the rest of it. So like it takes a village. We've said that a million times, and there's obviously three of us here. So there's there's always something to be done, and someone else knows something you don't. So it's really cool that at an age like that, you were able to piece together value and found the right people to bring it to. So I admire that a lot because I mean
well,
I that's the blueprint that I feel like we are trying to follow or be like some similar to. We're not musicians either, so except for
yeah,
Easty, sorry.
That's
I
all right.
I appreciate you saying that. I mean, the two things that kind of like don't like don't let what you don't know keep you from starting something, right? Like so I had no idea how to start a record company and it sounded crazy, right? And if you're like, "Oh, hey, I'm a teenager and I want to start a record company." You go into a bank and say that, they're just like, "Yeah, piss off." Like, like, "Oh, well, what bands do you represent?" "Oh, my friends from high school." Like, "What experience do you have?" "Oh, nothing." Like
Mm.
what assets do you have? Like like so we can like secure a loan. "Oh, I don't have anything."
Just
Like,
a
okay,
strong
cool.
hunch,
Like,
that's all.
yeah, you're exactly. I had a gut feeling, but that's not enough to do something traditionally. So, yeah, that's one point I definitely try to make in the book, but also, when I talk to people, it's like most people don't really know what they're doing. Parents don't really know what they're doing. You think they do, right? When you're a kid, you think, your teachers and your parents and people in positions of authority have all the answers and they know what they're doing, but a lot of people are just winging it. And I think once you realize that, then it makes it easier for you to like follow through with something and be a little more forgiving to yourself and say like, hey, I
Mm.
might not know what I'm doing, but I'm at least going to try. And then once you plant that flag and start something, I'm a very DIY, do-it-yourself person, um, but that really just means I start things and then once you plant that flag, other people in your orbit are going to look at you and hopefully say like, "Oh, I like that idea. That's cool. How can I help?" So like you might start a podcast as one person, but you've got a couple friends that are like, "Hey, that's cool." And I don't know if that's your situation, but like then all of a sudden other people want to be involved and
That
that
is pretty much
idea.
exactly our situation, by the way.
That is our
Yeah.
situation.
Yeah, like that idea that you might have that would have been impossible for one person to get off the ground now is very possible with three. So
Mm.
I think a lot of people make the mistake of waiting and like, oh, well, I'll start a podcast when I can afford like this special mic, or I'll start like for me, I could have been like, oh, I'll put out a record when I can afford to do like full color printing, but I can't. I can only afford black and white covers, and
Mm.
so that's what I did. I just did whatever I could afford, and it was enough, and people thought it was cool. And personally, I like seeing that progression. I like seeing that growth. Like the first handful of records are all very simple, black and white, no bells and whistles, no frills, because that's what I could afford. And then as I started to grow and opportunities started to present themselves, I reinvested in it, and now now I'm doing like special colors of vinyl. all the early records were just the stock cheapest colors. Give me the clear green and the black. Give me the, the clear red and the black, but now I'm doing like split vinyl with like red on one side and blue on the other and like a white spatter in the middle, So like things that cost a little bit more and are like, I don't know, that they're not as important when you're starting. You just got to like get started.
So these are multicolored, and that doesn't affect the integrity of the record at all. Sorry, and now I'm just wondering about the logistics of how the record can be multicolored like that. Does that like the plastic is?
So records are made with like vinyl pellets, and
Yeah.
basically they it's you call it like a wax or a vinyl record. Like so, like they take these pellets, and the pellets can be different colors. So like you could take a handful. They literally take like a handful of these pellets and then put it in the press like a waffle, and then it presses and it melts like all these little pellets into like one solid record.
Is that
And
before it's grooved, or is that when the grooving
yeah.
happens?
So the grooves are in the waffle plates. So like
Okay.
like if you look at a waffle plate, like it's got like the shape of a, like the waffle,
Mhm.
and then you make it and you open it and like there's actually a waffle inside. It's the exact same idea with a record, like the plate has the record basically backwards, and then they press it into the vinyl, and then it becomes like positive. And so you can put just like black vinyl into it and it'll make a black record. You could put yellow vinyl and make a yellow record, or you could take a handful of red and a handful of blue and have it be like half red, half blue with purple in the center, where they meet.
Okay. Have you ever made a gold one?
Yeah. So you can get like a metallic looking gold vinyl. We have a record store that we're friends with that's based in Berlin in Germany, and that's like their color. Like so, what's really common with vinyl is like people want their own exclusive variant, right? So like this cool record store, it's like the coolest record store in Germany, and Germany has like a huge heavy music fan base.
Mm.
So like there are bands like heavy metal, hardcore punk bands that will go and just play in Germany. I went there in 2005 with this band Slapshot, and we played 10 shows just in Germany. And so this store, they do a lot of business because there's like a big fan base there. And they'll go to record labels like ours and say, hey, we want to sell, your Death Before Dishonor album. We'll take 200 copies of it, but we want it to be on gold vinyl. So, when we press a record, we will do different versions. So like, maybe you only get one color from the band on tour. So like with Death Before Dishonor, it's like, all right, we'll make 100 on like this tiger's eye looking color, and only they have it. And then we'll make 200 on like orange vinyl, and that's only available from this distributor. We have a distributor on the West Coast that gets our records into a lot of like independent record stores, and they want like their logo is yellow, so they just want yellow records. So we'll press 200 copies on yellow and send it to them.
Okay. That's cool. I didn't know you
cool.
could do so easily. I mean, I don't know if it's easy necessarily, but that you could interchange the colors like that. So
Yeah.
are platinum and gold records that, or are they really platinum?
No, those are just like ceremonial. Those
Okay.
are just like a trophy, basically.
And they're not playable, you don't think?
Actually, that's a great question. I don't believe they are. I don't think like when you see a record that's like a gold record on like one of these plaques,
Yeah.
I don't think that's the actual record. I think that's just
Okay.
like made to look like a record.
That would be sick, but I feel like the metal pin on a metal groove would probably not sound so hot. So, anyways, that I was just curious because you said you could print the gold. I was like, do people ever ask for that? Is that like a custom order?
Yeah, I mean, the sky's the limit when it comes to vinyl colors, and it's cool. Like we had, an album where it had like a sunburst, where it had like these defined yellow and orange, like sunbeams, kind of like in the painting. And so we did a pressing where it was like it looked like the record looked like that. So it was like yellow and orange, like like sections that looked like a sunburst just
First try?
the vinyl. Well, they did a whole pressing of like 1,000 of them.
No way. Okay.
Wow.
So like
That's awesome.
oftentimes when we press a record, we'll do a few different versions. Like maybe some stores or distributors will get like an exclusive version that they would sell. But then once it becomes like a catalog piece for us, if there's still interest and demand, we'll order, say, 1,000 copies to keep it impressed, but it'll be on like one color. So, for like Death Before Dishonor, their new album came out last year. We did like 4 different versions of it and then sold out of them. So we just ordered like a new version. It's like, like this special blue that kind of matches the cover of the album.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
That is cool.
That's cool. Yeah, I recently saw a video like showing how records are made, and I did not know how it happened before, and it blew my mind.
Yeah, it's a very cool
cool
process, and it can be manual or it can be automatic. So like the stock colors and the more simple colors they can do like on an automatic basis, but like they will physically one at a time make these fancy records. So like if you see a record where it's like, half one color, half the other, and there's like a spatter of color down the center, like that's somebody making those one at a time.
Wow.
That's really impressive.
Yeah.
That's crazy. You're kind of making me feel like we should do exclusive podcasts on vinyl right now. But I am now another question, and I'm going to stop peppering you about vinyl questions. But what is the maximum time you can put on a record? There has to be like a limit, right?
Yeah, I forget what an LP is. It's maybe like 30 minutes per side.
That's less
In
than I
that
would think.
ballpark, 25 minutes maybe per side.
We get pretty long-winded, so we might have to cut our episodes down if we're doing that. But
Yeah.
anyways, that is fun.
Well, what about I mean, obviously you're a Red Sox fan, so why don't we jump into a little sports and what do you think about the past weekend with Cora and everything going? I don't
It's I mean, baseball decisions are not personal, which it sucks because, a lot of these guys you enjoy them, through the years, win or loss, but I mean the fact of the matter is the team kind of stinks right now, so
Yeah.
they're gonna have to shake things up.
Yeah. Yeah, they do. They definitely got to shake things up. I mean, when it first happened, we were going back and forth in our group chat, and they said they they had to start somewhere. And I mean, I'm not a fan of the front office, so I said Breslow won't be firing. Henry wouldn't fire Breslow. That's his guy right there. So and I mean, speaks for itself. The Sox have been one of the worst fielding teams in the league for the past handful of years. So, at some point, change has definitely got to be made. And, you know, I, I mean, sometimes you got to move on from some players, and you don't want to, but I don't know. I think my other the other part of me too is it's Boston. Like what happened to the days of us having 5, 6 all stars in the lineup, and then 2 pitchers that were in the All Star game, and maybe our closer was the All Star closer
Oh
or
yeah.
something.
We used to stack the lineup, no problem.
Well, I mean, look at like, was it 2004 when they got rid of Nomar?
Yeah.
I mean, when that happened, people were just like, "What are you guys doing?" I mean, I
Yeah.
feel like it was, people were pissed,
Yeah,
but they won the World Series that year, right? So like,
you
you
they
know,
they would never have won that World Series with Nomar.
yeah. So like,
I think they could have won with Nomar.
Dave
That's
Roberts
my
is
hot
one of
You
take.
think you could have helped him win?
I think with Nomar, they still could have won a World Series. Not saying they would have. I'm just saying
This is Nomar
possible.
saying this right now, by the way. If anyone knows the videos.
Snowmar.
Yeah,
Garcia.
Snowmar. That's right. I said it wrong.
So I just looked this up because I know I've heard rumors of this. Are Yankees Suck shirts allowed in Fenway anymore? Because there are stories of people being turned away or having to turn them inside out.
I'm pretty sure they are now. I don't think anyone's
Okay.
really doing that right now.
I never heard about
I
that.
wore
Okay.
this in there on opening day.
All right, there you go. I don't know.
Yeah.
They're just
They-
on
they-
Reddit. Some people are
they-
saying that they've been turned away or told to turn it inside out or something like that.
They for sure made people turn them inside out at one point. Like it was definitely.
Yeah.
And it's
How
funny. I
though?
remember
Why?
we used to sell these like hand flags that said Yankees Suck. Like these like little 12 by 18 or so flags that were on like a little stick, and they were like the kind of ceremony, like kind of like souvenir looking flags, and they had these sharp points, kind of like the gold, point on them, and people started complaining because they were being confiscated, because security was taking them, not because of what it said, but because they thought they were going to use them as a weapon. Um,
Okay.
so
Well, that's
we
crazy because
started
they sell mini bats in there. You
for
could do
sure.
anything with like a
Yeah.
plastic fork. I don't know.
Absolutely. I mean, maybe it was just an excuse, but we started cutting those tops off before every game, so that people would be able to not, so they wouldn't get confiscated.
Oh man,
Okay.
you'd
That's
think there'd be
awesome.
a manufacturer that doesn't have the points on them. That sucks
Yeah.
though.
I mean, I know they have ones that like you can get like a little gold ball on it, but I
Yeah.
didn't. I just said, yeah, I want 3,000 of these flags or something, and just got what I got.
Yeah. No, I wouldn't have thought
Okay.
about that either. That's interesting. Yeah.
How do you compare the Fenway experience nowadays to what it was, say, early 2000s when you're at the height of selling these Yankees Suck shirts? How do you compare Fenway Park to what it is now?
I mean, we started before the monster seats were built.
Yep.
So I mean, there's been a lot of uh, upgrades and things that have obviously been brought to the park. I mean, at the time, people were talking about like moving Fenway or like moving
I
to New
remember that. I remember seeing like when I was real young, I remember seeing Save Fenway bumper
Yeah,
stickers on
yeah,
cars. Yeah.
that was like a thing, and that was one of the reasons why John Henry's ownership was so like people were kind of excited about it at the time, was
Yeah.
because he wanted to preserve Fenway. Like his ownership group wanted to preserve Fenway, um, which I don't know. I think that's the call. I think you got to
Absolutely.
preserve like these connections to the past,
Mm.
because you know with some things it doesn't matter, but when it comes to a tradition like sports, it's the same thing with music. Like it kills me that the CBGB nightclub is like a designer clothing store in New York City. That was like the birthplace of punk rock,
Mm.
and
Okay.
it's like a place that sells $1,000 designer coat like jackets. Like it's
Yeah.
like every cool band from the 70s and 80s and on played there, and then they closed in like 2000, I think 5 or 6. um so it was just kind of and it just got turned into something else.
Hmm.
um to imagine a Boston without like Fenway Park being
No, I can't.
seems crazy.
Certainly
Yeah,
seems
I do
crazy.
think Fenway Park is just going to keep being replaced until it's no longer any of the original parts. We've said this on a different podcast. It's going to be a ship of Theseus type situation, and there will be the entire old park will have been sold to people and be in their basements and whatnot.
Yeah, yeah. It's like when they sell the seats, and
Yeah,
you know
I wish we did that. I know some people have them. I'm jealous. I'm pretty
That would be
jealous.
pretty cool to have, actually.
If
The
anyone has a seat, give us your address.
Yeah, where I work, one of the doctor's offices has 2 seats right in the waiting room.
That's
Where
awesome.
is that?
I've actually
I'll
seen
tell you off there.
that must have been a popular thing for doctors' offices, because I've seen that before in other places.
Well, maybe you went
I
to the
think my
doctor's where I
Maybe you
work.
guys have the same doctor.
my daughter's like or dentist has one,
That's
like
pretty cool.
That could be a fun thing to bootleg, actually. Actually, I'm gonna cut this part out, and then we're gonna we should do that.
Make old Fenway chairs.
Yeah, yeah, it could be the move.
Yeah, get the
Could be the move.
welder out.
I'm gonna send him
it's
a bunch of Ted Williams seats. I'll just make 1,000 of them.
I think it's really important that so Salem, I lived in Salem, Massachusetts for many, many years. I live in Beverly now, but like for almost 20 years I lived in Salem. And like the thing that people love about old cities like that is that old, you know, uh 17th and 18th century architecture, right?
Mhm.
Hmm.
Like this is where these people lived. Like the Witch House is like the most popular attraction in Salem, because that's the one house that is directly connected to the witch trials, and the house is still there, and the people, that's where the people lived, and it's there's that connection to history that's so important. And I think that to lose the field where like someone like Babe Ruth, or Ted Williams, played, it's
Mhm.
just would just be crazy. I'm sure you could make a much more comfortable stadium, someplace else, that would have a lot of the amenities, but I don't know.
I'm comfortable enough at Fenway.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's not.
okay. That says a lot.
I'm
Comfortable
comfortable.
enough.
I've never sat at a game at Fenway and said I'm uncomfortable. I'll say that.
That's okay. You're fucking lying.
You,
That's
I haven't.
crazy, dude.
I'm there to watch the baseball game. I don't need a fucking lazy boy chair.
you haven't sat next to some big old people.
Well, yeah. I mean, the seats used to be even
Been getting
smaller.
your
Yeah.
been getting your knees crushed.
Yeah, I mean that can happen. They're not
No,
the most spacious seats, but
it
I have to
is.
be on an end anywhere I am. Anywhere I am, I have to have an end seat or I'll die.
yeah.
So I don't know how people do that. They're like 40 seats in the bleachers. I'm like, nah, I'll go home.
But if you're on an end seat, then you have to you got to keep getting up for people all game if you're at the
Yeah,
end.
but I can spread my legs a little better. I can get out if
There
I
you go.
need to. I don't have to ask anyone to get up for me. I don't know, dude. Just give
I
me an
will.
excuse to stretch my legs.
I will say I agree though that the connection to the past. So my father and I used to go around to a bunch of different baseball fields, and we went to RFK when the Nationals first came into the league, and that was like an old field. And then we went to, I think right after that, or maybe the year before that, we had gone to um, Citizens Bank, and Philly had just built it. It was the opening day of first game of the stadium, or first game, one of the first games of the year there, and just the difference between like being at an old stadium, and it's different here in Boston because of the tradition, like you said, but even just being at RFK where, you know, back in the old days, there was definitely some legends that played there. It was just a whole different vibe, and it gives you that nostalgia feel. So I just wanted to say I definitely agree with what you were saying as far as like Fenway, um, you know, being it would be great to move, great to have like some brand new place, but there's just something about that dirt, something about Pesky's pole. Everybody
Oh,
and their mothers signed it,
I
you know.
agree with you. I haven't signed it. I feel like it could be
That's crazy.
we
The
should
amount of
all
times
go.
you've been there, you haven't signed it.
We should all go and sign it sometime
We should
as
sign
a
it.
squad. And maybe, dude, I've had the hot take where I said I think Fenway's the worst baseball stadium, and I do think that might be true. But now I feel like I have to take it back because I'm gonna get attacked right now.
I
People are
mean,
gonna
I
come
get
at
what
us
you
in
were
the
saying, but
comments.
it's just like the nostalgia. You can't replace that. I think.
I'm nostalgic about it for sure. Yeah. So I guess
I
I
think
should.
if they
I'm
tore it
gonna
down
say
and built a new stadium, more Boston people would be pissed about it than not.
Well,
yeah.
I feel like there's people that have like traveled to Boston that are not
Specifically to go to
baseball
Fenway.
fans, but that are not baseball fans that have gone to Fenway just
That's
to
why we keep selling
experience it.
tickets when we suck. All the tourists.
Yeah,
There's still a lot of seats, but it's been better.
Yeah, it could get bad pretty fast this year. We'll see what happens.
well, I will say, update bottom of the eighth, they're up 5-0 again. So maybe Chad Tracy is the answer.
Two
Yeah,
and
write
zero
that
with
down.
Chad
Write that down.
Tracy.
Hey,
All
anything
Wow.
right.
could happen by the time this gets posted, so we could eat our words.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
true. They could easily go on a 5-game losing streak starting tomorrow.
So Chris, I did want to ask you another question about punk in general because I don't know if this is just a me thing, but when I think punk, I think of course, like the spiked mohawks, like leather jackets, like with the chain wallets and whatnot. But I also think of moshing. I more immediately think of moshing. Is that part of the punk that you're familiar with, or is that like another subsect of hardcore or something? I don't know exactly like
Yeah.
the
No,
word.
it's moshing is part of the culture. It's something that happens at every show, and it's the part of, it obviously people can get injured when people are moshing, but the reality is it's part of that direct personal connection, like the blurring of the line between the stage and the band. So
Yeah.
you've got people that are moshing and dancing kind of hard in the front of the stage, but then you also have people that are climbing up on stage and jumping back into the crowd, back and forth, throughout the night, like that kind of blurred line between artist and audience was something that was super like just like incredibly like cool for me to see. You know, early in my kind of like formative years.
Were you
Did
in
you
there
ever?
throwing bows?
I was
Yeah,
gonna. That was my question.
I was less of a moshing guy and more of like a stage diving guy. So I would have like
Okay.
insane, like I actually. So I was. Do you know that band Hatebreed?
Yes.
They're like a big like hard. I mean, they're a hardcore band, but they're like big in like the metal kind of world. Um,
Yeah.
I'm in two of their music videos, and I went down to one of their music videos when they were filming it. I was asked to come to it because I had a reputation for like making insane jumps off of like speakers into crowds.
Oh, that was your
Oh,
thing.
oh,
Yeah,
wow. Okay.
there's like a video. I think it's the song "I Will Be Heard," where like I'm like slow motion front flipping off of a balcony. So I'm like
Oh
10 feet
wow.
from the crowd, and I like just jumped off of it and front flipped.
Holy shit.
That's in the
They
video.
caught you?
They did catch me.
Did
Oh
you ever
my
get hurt?
God.
I did. I remember I was at a Dropkick Murphys show. This
Shout
is
out.
probably like 2003. And at the end of their set, everyone was on stage and I would do the thing where like I would like climb up something and like jump on top of the crowd. And I'd be like like standing or like kneeling on top of everyone's heads, singing along, whatever. And the song ended and the crowd kind of like leaned over towards the side of the stage and I fell off of the top of the crowd and landed on my knee on the barrier. So you know like that metal barrier that they have?
Oh
I
yeah.
landed with my knee and like my skin split. Like I didn't break
Mm.
the knee. It like got, bruised and like, like swollen. But I had to go to the I like I like I'm trying to remember. So like I had to like cover like I had postal tape, so like I just like put a bandage on it and then I wrapped like this priority mail tape around my leg to kind of keep it together.
Is that
Yeah.
because you were shipping merch all the time? Like,
Yeah,
why was
because
that
I
what you
mean
had? Okay.
as a record label, I had like packing. I had like these tape guns, as they're called.
Yeah, yeah.
This priority mail tape, so you could like tape the priority mail logo around the box,
Mm.
Yeah.
and I had to go to the hospital like a couple days later for something unrelated, and they saw my leg and they're like, "Do you work at the post office?" Totally random thing, but that happened at a Dropkick Murphy show.
Okay.
That is, you just gave me a really sick idea for an underwear line called Priority Mail. We have to cut this part out as well, because it's a sick business idea. But okay, that's crazy though. So your knee just split open. I like the pressure of that, I
The
guess. I don't even
skin,
know how
yeah,
that was
the skin,
happening.
it just like kind of split. I don't think I needed stitches or anything for it. I think it just, I just put stuff on it and kind of like kept it, tight. But yeah,
Yeah.
I remember I had trouble walking for like 2 weeks after that because my knee just it sucked.
Ooh.
Okay. Well, if that's the worst one you had, that's not too bad, considering you were known for jumping off of, high places.
And like irresponsibly, like
Yeah.
Well, 10 feet sounds crazy. Yeah, onto people.
yeah. I mean, there was one there was a festival. I remember I saw video footage of it, and actually there's a picture of it in my book, where I jumped off of the speakers at like this big festival, and my foot hit the lights like above the stage, and then the lights started moving, kind of like back and forth, and like freaked people out. Again, totally irresponsible, but I was a lot younger at that point and was making stupid kind of decisions.
Yeah.
So, so hypothetically, if there was like this punk show at Fenway Park, this hardcore show at Fenway Park, when you were in that heyday, in that moment, would you have jumped off a center field into the crowd?
No, but I know someone that did. So I'm sure he won't mind me mentioning it, but there's this cool like glass like pipe shop in Salem called Witch Doctor.
Oh yeah,
Oh,
Oh,
we know Witch Doctor.
No Witch Doctor.
oh
So
yeah.
Yeah, we do.
The guy Derek that owns it, super cool guy. Love him. I don't smoke weed. I'm straight edge, but I met him through we would go to the same coffee shop every morning, and just we're just like I think the owner probably introduced us, and we ended up doing merch for them. We did a couple actual merch collabs between Sully's and Witch Doctor years
oh,
ago.
awesome.
But I remember he told me that dude, this is like how like if you had like 10 photos to like tell the story of your life, he had one of those photos. And at some point when he was a lot younger, he was in center field and dropped down the wall
Did the old hang?
yeah, and like Timberlands, like I don't know how he didn't break his ankle,
So this
but
is
like
during a game.
during a game, dropped down and then ran on the field. And there was like a security guy that dove and caught him. And there's photos, these beautiful, amazing photos of him like running, like, oh my God, it's like, and this guy in midair around his waist. And it was on like the cover of the Boston Globe.
Wow. Was
Um,
it a dare?
Probably was, yeah. I don't know if it
Yeah.
was.
I
Sure,
always wonder when people run on the field, I'm like, what
yeah.
provoked you to do that?
I'm sure it was a dare, and I'm sure there was, probably some drinking involved.
Yeah, of
But
course.
yeah, I mean, it was just like it's worth it for the photo. I mean, it was just such a. I remember him showing me this. I'm like, this is the coolest. I mean, obviously, like that sucks. You got arrested. But like that is just such a cool photo.
Cool,
Word
That's
of
cool
cool. Yeah, I
story.
tried
the
to Google
photo.
it. I couldn't find it right away, but we'll track it down.
Track it down.
Did he, by any chance, get like cut, or did he do it on the bleacher side where it's not as far down? Because I feel if you were like on the monster or something, somebody like held their friend off the monster, and I don't know if he fell or like he like caught him. That happened one time. I remember my dad telling me about it. There was a guy like hanging off the monster, and there was his friend like
I mean,
holding
that's like
him.
3 stories or something. So
Yeah,
like,
that's a big fall.
Well, when you were
that's not
saying it, I'm like, it couldn't have been there. It had to
no,
have
it
been.
wasn't the monster. It was like more like towards I think like the 420.
Center field. Yeah. That's still
Coincidentally,
pretty high.
Like where Jimmy Kimmel jumped down, Jimmy Fallon or whatever.
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Actually, I have a funny Jimmy Fallon story. So when I was researching the book and I was like trying to piece together the timeline of like the history of what we were doing when we were doing it, I found a newspaper article about the filmmaking of Fever Pitch that came out around when the movie came out. So I, I had like the costume department for that movie was an old it was like an abandoned storefront in Kenmore Square. And so I went there. This was probably summer of 2004 with a box of T-shirts because I knew that a movie was being filmed. It was about the Red Sox. So I literally walked right in and said, "Hey, if you guys want to use some of these shirts, go for it." And it was like a bunch of our shirts from like that era, 2003, 2004. Um, Nothing happened. Nothing ever like I never got a call. Never didn't pop up in the movie. So whatever. We've certainly had other things pop up in movies that have been cool, but I found this article. Apparently, they did wear Jimmy Fallon wore one of our shirts in a scene, and Major League Baseball said, "No, you're not wearing that.
Do you
Wow.
know what shirt it was?
We're not going to sign off on this because there's a lot of licensing issues with this movie. That if you want us to sign off on it, you have to get rid of this scene." And
Wow.
we had a T-shirt that said this was like our best-selling shirt in 2003. It said, "Take your 26 rings and shove them up your ass." And, because we were
I
selling.
love
I
it.
remember those. I
We
remember
were
those.
selling Yankees Suck stuff, and people like Yankees fans they would always say, "Hey, who's got 26 rings?" Right?
Mm.
Yep.
That was
Yeah.
the thing that everyone said. What about our 26 rings? How many rings do you got?
They still say 27 all the time when
There's an
it
Yeah,
comes to
asterisk
I
on
know.
the
It's
back.
been
yeah.
what, like
That's their
17 years?
go-to. Yeah, I know. It's like we have 4 in the last 25, so you can't really it doesn't hold as much weight anymore.
Exactly. Exactly. So yeah, so apparently Jimmy Fallon wore that shirt in the movie. It got cut. So we never saw it and didn't learn about it for decades. But that's kind of a cool fun fact.
That is a
That
fun
is cool.
fact.
So what movies did you get into? Did your shirts get into?
So most notably, that movie, The Town.
Oh yeah.
With
Yep.
Ben
Oh
Affleck.
yeah. They got the Fight Club shirt on.
Yeah, so we had a Fight Club shirt and we had a Believe in Boston shirt, like a kind
That's
of
awesome.
black and gold Believe in Boston shirt that Ben Affleck wore, which was
That was the
That's
one I was
incredible.
thinking of actually.
yeah.
So I got a fun fact, but I was just in LA in February,
Quit
and
bragging.
I'm not bragging, but it was vacation. But me and my buddies had gone to Gold's Gym, and it was right the day after the Super Bowl, and this one guy were outside, and he says to some other guy, "Oh, tough game or whatever." So we start conversating, And he's like, I can tell you're from Boston, whatever, blah, blah, blah. And he looks at me, he goes, you ever seen the movie The Town? And I go, yeah, of course I have. I've seen it like a million times. And he's like, my buddy right there was in it. And he
Yeah.
points at this guy, and I'm like, I don't recognize you from the movie, dude.
Was he like a bus driver or like?
Well, he goes, you wouldn't recognize me. I had the mask on, the nun's mask. I go, no, you didn't, because you weren't any of the four that wore the
Yeah.
mask. And he's like, I'm Ben Affleck's stunt double. I'm
Oh,
like, I'm
okay.
like, oh no shit. And he had just worked in on the new Ben Affleck movie, The Rip, that they just did.
Yeah,
Him
yeah.
and Matt Damon. So it was just funny relating it to The Town. Um, yeah, I was like, you weren't in the fucking movie, dude. Don't try and pull a fast one on me.
That's job security. If you look enough like the guy and you do a good job that first time, you might be their guy forever. So
Mm.
just
Yeah. Oh, it sounds like he does like all of his movies. I'm like,
nice.
nice
That's a cool
payday for
job.
you.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you
So
get to
what
do all the
what other
cameo.
movies?
So Bridge Nine got a lot of love in Manchester by the Sea.
Okay.
Okay.
Oh, so you just know the Afflecks.
So yeah, that's another Casey Affleck. Totally coincidental. Whoever was involved with the costume department for that movie was had a connection to Emerson College. There's a
Okay.
lot of movie people that are connected to Emerson, and a
Shout
friend
out
of
Bates.
ours. What's that?
Sorry, there's a guy Bates Wilder. He teaches over there, so shout out.
Well, one of my friends was an Emerson grad, and the guy from the costume department said, "Hey, we need local band stuff. This is being filmed in Manchester, like in Boston area. So like, can you connect me with someone that can get us posters for this teenager's bedroom?" So they reached out to us, took a bunch of our posters. We sent them a link to like our website, and then I threw in a Bridge Nine like flag. So like I would make these flags. Originally, I made them for Sully's. It was like believe in Boston or like Yankees Suck or an Irish flag. We do these different flags. So I started making them for bands, but I also made one for Bridge Nine. It was just like our logo really big, and I threw it in this box of posters that they had ordered. And then they ended up using that flag on the wall of like this kid's bedroom in the scene, and it like not only made it into the movie, but it also made it into the trailer. So like the trailer comes out and like people are hitting me up like, why is there like a 5 foot wide Bridge Nine logo on in this movie? So
That's awesome.
that
That's
was
so cool.
that was totally random. But another fun Affleck story. So we've been a brand. Bridge Nine and Sully's have been brands for decades at this point. Going into the pandemic, we were in this old like mill building in Peabody for 14 years. And during the pandemic, the owners, they were elderly and were looking to retire. They got spooked by lockdowns and stuff, so they sold the building we were in. And we had like originally signed like a 3-year lease and just like burrowed into every corner of this space. So it was like a big deal that now all of a sudden we were going to have to move. So I found a spot in Beverly, and that's our spot that we're in now. We have our record store, and Sully's brand has our store here. And the spot that I found was it was originally like when they built it like 100 years ago, it was a car dealership, and then it became a glass company for like 57 years. So we're only the third business to be in this space in almost like a century. And it was a really rough space. I mean, when I moved in, I was just like, where do I even start? Like, there's so much to do and trying to figure this out. So I was just like, I've bitten off way more than I can chew. I don't even know what to do. And the next day, I got a phone call from a movie location scout for the movie The Tender Bar, which is a George Clooney film. It was filmed here in Beverly, and it stars Ben Affleck. And Ben Affleck had been very cool and had been repping our brand during the pandemic, like going on these pandemic era, kind of like paparazzi walks where he'd go with his girlfriend on a walk and like, paparazzi would take photos. And he was wearing shirts of ours, which was super cool. Um, and just to find out that this movie had looked at 30 different bars and picked the one next door to ours like one day after we had committed to the space. So because of that, we did have an opportunity to meet Ben and thank him for having repped our brands over the years. And then also design a T-shirt for him to give to the cast and crew after the movie was over. So,
Oh wow,
That's really
that's
cool.
none
awesome.
of our stuff made it into the movie, but we were able to help like behind the scenes.
That's
That's
really cool.
awesome.
Dang. So you guys must have Sunday phone calls. It sounds like you guys just know each
No,
other.
we've talked a couple times, but not much. You know, I mean, he's a busy dude.
Interesting.
But
Your
I
six
mean,
degrees is crazy.
he's one of those people that like doesn't really have to do much, but like he doesn't owe anyone anything, right? But
Mhm.
like we'll like throw you a bone. And like for us during the pandemic, when our main sources of revenue are tourism and sports, and both of those things were gone. And so like having somebody at his level wearing our shirts almost every day, we would get, a couple dozen orders, because people would see, oh, I like that Believe in Boston shirt. They Google it, they find us, they buy one. Then of course, like it starts becoming a pattern. So like the Boston Globe hits us up and like, hey, why does Ben Affleck keep wearing your shirts? And like writes a story about it. And then of course, we get a bunch of publicity because of that. So like, efforts like that, he certainly didn't have to do, but it was super helpful for us to keep going during a really difficult time.
That is awesome. I
What
love
a
when
guy.
celebrities do stuff like that because they obviously have the power to help people, just like literally like it could just be like a point. Like I trust that guy, and then people will buy stuff from you,
Yeah.
kind of a thing. Um, did any of those shirts get into the pictures where he's in those like relatable meme ones where he's just has the Dunkin' and the cigarette?
Yeah.
That's your
All of
shirt?
them did. All of them did. Yeah. So like,
Oh, no way.
yeah. So like the one where he's like fumbling the tray of coffees, that's
Yeah.
our Believe in Boston shirt. And because of that, so like there was like 3 or 4 different times he was photographed like holding Dunkin' coffees with one of our like Believe in Boston t-shirts. So when Dunkin' Donuts picked him up as like a brand ambassador a few years ago, they reached out to us too and said like, hey, uh, can we do a collab together? So like in the past, we would have just like knocked off like their fonts and like made a T-shirt and like we actually did years ago. We had a Masshole shirt that looked like a Dunkin' shirt, and we got a cease and desist. I mean, this was like
This
15 years ago. But they reached out to us and said, hey, we see all these photos of Ben Affleck wearing your brand and like, wearing specifically Believe in Boston t-shirts. It would be cool to do something with us. So we designed, like, I mean, not that it was a big lift, but just designed like a shirt that said Believe in Boston and their kind of iconic colors and font. And made it for him, made it for their staff, started selling it online. They were very cool about licensing it to us as an opportunity for us to sell. So yeah, just that was one more random thing that happened because of that.
Super cool. I thought you were going to say you designed the dunking
No,
suits, whatever
no,
those are.
no. Although he wore one of our T-shirts in one of those commercials during the Super Bowl, but like it was zipped up, so like
Wow.
literally only my daughter and I knew. Like, holy shit, he's wearing our shirt, and nobody else noticed because you couldn't read it.
wow.
But it could have been very cool, but I'm not going to complain. I mean,
Mm.
it was
Hey, it's still cool. It was a Super Bowl, man.
yeah.
You know, if you
That
could
was
see,
his win.
I'm sure now if I go find that commercial,
Yeah.
I'll slow it down and I'll be like, I see what he's saying.
100%. Like there's like one where he's like in an office and he's like talking and like you can just see like 2 letters, in between like the dunking like thing.
Yeah.
Damn it.
If you know, you know.
Yeah, exactly.
Well,
That
and
is cool.
like on his part too, like you always like probably maybe not wonder, but you kind of like, did he unzip it just enough so you could see
True.
just enough, you know?
Yeah,
Because like I guess he could have like because it doesn't Mark have his like zipped all the way up,
probably. Yeah.
so
So I
like
mean,
Dang.
obviously that dude many times did a solid when he didn't have to and didn't know us.
Yeah. Would you
That
say
is
the Believe in Boston it's got to be one of your most successful designs, right?
Yeah, yeah. It is eclipsed Yankees Suck. I mean, it is
Has it really?
for
Okay,
sure.
that was basically my question.
Like it's something that, but we've also done it in like 50 different styles, right? Like we
Yeah.
do for different team, kind of like, for fans of different teams. We do it for different benefits. We've used it to fundraise for a few different organizations and helped raise a lot of money because of it.
Yeah.
So it's something that's kind of like our secondary brand to Sully's. So, oftentimes I'll put Believe in Boston on t-shirts because we have it federally trademarked.
Okay.
So if I make a t-shirt that's not trademarked, anyone can knock it off, and it's really hard to try and stop them.
Mm-hmm.
But if you include like, if I have a shirt that goes viral and it says Believe in Boston at the bottom, all the people knocking it off are going to include Believe in Boston because that's part of the shirt. But while I might not have trademarked like the main phrase, just having my other trademark on there gives me leverage. So
Yep.
like we'll have shirts. I mean, unfortunately, you make something now, people start talking about it on Twitter and like bots just make the shirt and
Yeah.
like it just becomes available in like these weird derivative bullshit versions. Like, I talk about the Joe Kelly Fight Club shirt. I remember we had a customer that wasn't even one of our customers, but like reach out to complain because the shirt was missing a letter. Like it said like Joe Kelly Fight Club and like the I was missing. Like it literally like it was knocked out. Like it should have been there, but like it wasn't there. And it was because it was like, made overseas, AI, like it wasn't real. I mean, this was 2018. And we had to say like, no, like you just Googled Joe Kelly Fight Club shirt and bought the cheapest one you found. And then got mad about it and like found us and complained, but like that's unfortunately that wasn't ours.
Yeah.
When you say it
Wow.
like that, it just sounds crazy for them to even do that. Like you clearly went and found the cheapest one from some weird website. You knew it wasn't the real website. It couldn't have looked like your website. I mean,
Yeah.
who knows? Maybe it did, but it couldn't be that good.
Well, and I mean, so people will make things that look like ours, but like that's why we leaned into starting a brand because, at first when we would make stuff outside of Fenway, there was no brand, there was no identifier of what it was. It was just something you bought on the street. But because there were other people doing it at the time, or there would be competitors. If we had success, other people would see it and try and copy us. So I started Sully's as a brand to like let people know like this is our thing. And it is weird, like some people don't care, they just want the shirt and they want the cheapest version of it, but like there is a story to ours. I mean, that's why I wrote a book, because there is a story about the arc of these brands that some people do really appreciate, because like Fenway connects to the past. We're like dealing with multiple generations of customers now. I mean, we're selling t-shirts to like the kids of our original customers from back in the day. So like you want something that like connects to the past. And for us now, having been a brand for, over 2 decades, like that connects.
So I just looked it up because I couldn't remember what year it was, but ALDS 2017, we went down, Red Sox went down 2-0. And then game 3, Hanley Ramirez came out on the field with your Believe in Boston flag.
Yeah.
That's, I think, the first time I saw that design, and I've seen it a million times since then.
That was incredible. And it's funny because I was at, I think if not that game, like the game maybe the day before, like holding it in the stands, and they zoomed in on me on TV, and like, I'm like,
okay,
holding the flag. But yeah, I've been really lucky that, players have repped our brand, players have held, stuff out. Some stuff like I've tried to like get it into them. Other stuff, it just happens organically. You know, it's I bet since we've been around for as long as we have, like we've just kind of thankfully become part of the fabric of
definitely
fandom.
100%. I think you're in the fabric of not just the Red Sox, but the core of Boston sports. I mean, like just not even just the longevity alone. You guys are like ingrained in the sports culture,
and the fact that it's taken place over these like 2 decades where we've just been dominant, 2.5 now.
Well, I mean, we joke that had I started Sully's in the 90s, it would have been out of business in a couple of years.
It was perfect timing. It was perfect timing.
Being at the right place at the right time. And for me, it was a perfect storm for the music because, there was kind of a changing of the guard around the late 90s going into the early 2000s in Boston in the hardcore and punk scene. And I was just right in the center of it.
Yeah.
My roommates, my first record was with friends from high school. My seventh record, which is the one that really kind of like kicked us off and like gave us like momentum, was a band called American Nightmare, and they were just my roommates. They were like, hey, like you put out records, like, do you want to do our record, kind of thing. And there wasn't any expectation, or nobody knew what the band was going to become, but they became like an iconic punk band, and I was there at the beginning. So I did their first couple of records. And it was just at the right place at the right time. So for me, I like to think that I'm industrious and like I'm good at business and I hustle, but there were like certain like time and place things that aligned that allowed for things to happen. And
Absolutely.
having this opportunity at Fenway, going from making like just enough money to cover my rent to actually being able to bankroll all these bands because of the opportunity at Fenway Park, selling stuff based on the rivalry, having a band that I just like lived with that was going to become one of the like best known hardcore punk bands or most exciting bands at that time. But then also I was very fortunate. Like you talk about like, how do you know what to do when you want to start a label? Like I did a lot of guessing early on, but by like my fifth or sixth year, I ended up getting a job at another indie label that was like very cool and was doing a lot of really neat things in Boston. And I learned a lot from that owner. So like I searched out opportunities when I could to find people that I could like connect with that would help, ultimately like allow me to do what I wanted to do.
Mm-hmm.
And I learned a lot from this guy. He did a label called Big Wheel Recreation in Boston. But you might not know him personally, but like, he did records with like Jimmy World, which became like a huge kind of emo pop band.
Yep.
And it was just like he was like at
We all
the
know The Middle.
yeah, like
That's the only song I know, but
yeah,
that was a hit.
that was a hit. Yeah, I mean, he was just this guy that was like in the center of all this cool stuff, and I was in his orbit at the right time. Like, and it allowed me to learn some of the tools that I needed to uh, really benefit from some of the opportunities that I had, both from making money at Fenway and then the bands that I was trying to work with.
So when did you decide to write a book about all this? Because it's such a unique experience.
Thank you. So I started writing it maybe 10 years ago, but not
Okay.
seriously. It was so I was have you read the Grantland article about the Yankees Suck vendors? There's like a pretty
Um,
popular
I'm
Grantland.
not sure. I saw something on Vice once.
Yeah, Vice did something.
Okay.
There was like a 30 for 30 podcast that was also about my friends.
Yep.
And I was interviewed for Grantland and for the 30 for 30 like extensively. But as friends and businesses evolve, like there's disagreements and people fall out of friendships and one of the one of the main guys from my crew of friends, we kind of like didn't see eye to eye on a couple things. So he was able to lobby to kind of like just tell his story. So for Grantland, he only had like, I don't know, 5,000 words he could use to tell this story. So everything that I contributed got cut, which sucked because I was looking forward to it coming out. I worked with the writer pretty extensively and given them a lot of info. I was in the photos, for the piece because I was, in the mix at that time. So I think once that stuff happened and stuff that I contributed wasn't in the story, I was like, you know what? I just need to tell the story, you know, from my perspective. And so I would start just like doing paragraphs, nothing crazy. I've never considered myself, I'm certainly not a professional writer, but I can tell a good story. And like, so I just started like writing down some of these stories that had been told amongst friends for years. And right around the pandemic started, like tightening it up and said, you know what, I really need to just like get this done, and started dedicating an hour or two every morning. First thing I did, just like every day, just started writing, until I had something that looked like a book. So, you know,
Wow.
yeah, long process. Definitely one of the top three like biggest projects I've ever tackled. But I'm glad I did it.
Was it more difficult than you expected? Less difficult?
It was it was really hard in the respect that, you know, being kind of insecure as a writer, like I don't have a lot of experience at it. I think I just kind of like kept over analyzing, and
Mm.
I did hire an editor to go through it and kind of give me third party feedback, like, hey, like this chapter is really funny, but it doesn't add anything to the story, and like I really like these characters that you talk about. I want to know more about them. So it helped challenge me as a writer and to like make it into something that was more compelling for someone that might not be familiar with any parts of the story, right? Like I didn't want to write this for Red Sox fans. I didn't want to write it for punk rock fans. I wanted to write it as just an interesting story that anyone could pick up and get something from it, you know, whether it's,
Yeah.
you know, about small business, about music, about like just starting your own thing. Um, so working with an editor to kind of like polish it up and make it, you know, make my ideas kind of like cohesive, was helpful, and you know, thankfully was able to get a book deal because of it.
That's amazing. Congrats.
Awesome.
Thank you. Yeah, it sucked. It was a lot of work, but it's surreal having it out there, and especially for me being someone that has been behind the scenes for the most part. I'm the guy that helps tell other people's stories, helps them put their lyrics out, you know, helps them get their music out.
Right.
Being the one to like, you know, have to step out front and talk about it has been challenging, but it's been cool.
Yeah, I mean, you're kind
But
of it's kind of the first time you're in the spotlight, really.
Yeah, yeah, I've really been mostly behind the scenes for the most part.
Yeah.
well, and putting that, I mean, 10 years of work together and finally seeing it come to fruition, that's got to be rewarding in itself, even if, you know, even if you just finished the book with the editor and you said, all right, I'm, you know,
Yeah.
I'll let some people read it, but whatever, like just even doing that much work, um, is a accomplishment in itself. And then, you know, from to put yourself out there from behind the scenes, that's another, you know, something, another accomplishment in itself too. So you just, you know, you're challenging yourself to grow in different ways. Even it's like, the man that never stops, you know, trying to add tools to his tool belt, basically.
Yeah.
Uh, you know, whether it's, you know, like you said, through music, through small businesses, now even through writing. You know, who knows? Maybe your book could inspire someone to be the next, you know, turn into the next version of you.
That's the hope. I mean, in the same way I've been inspired by other people and I've learned from other people, you just want to pass it along, right? Like so like I want people to read this, and even if they, you know, it doesn't, you don't have to dream to start a record company. You know, like you just want to do something. And everyone wants to do something, but the hardest part is making it happen, right? Like taking that first step. And the hope is that people will read this and be inspired to act. You know, it's not to do specifically what I did, but just to just take whatever it is that they're excited about and make it real.
Yeah, 100%. Like going to the gym. So people say, "I'll go tomorrow." You know, you just got to go. You know.
That's it. Everybody wants to do something, but it's very rare when somebody physically makes it happen. And you know, but it feels good when you do it, right? Like, I mean, like you like there's a lot of reward when you accomplish something, whether it's working out or it's like making a product that you dream of. It's very cool to be able to do that. So, you know,
100%.
let
And
people
you,
know it's attainable.
well, you've shown improved each time. You know, you didn't let stuff stand in your way, and you just, you know, put your head down and you said, "I'm gonna do it, and I'm gonna learn by, you know, fight or flight."
Yeah.
And you came to fight. You know?
If you mess up, you just try and do it better the next time, you know?
Exactly.
Yeah, so I don't want to keep you all night. I think we hit most of the big topics. Is there anything in particular that we've missed or that you wanted to plug?
Just to let people know that the book exists. It's called Fenway Punk. I got a copy right here, so it looks like this.
It's a nice looking cover.
Oh yeah.
Kind of looks like one of the stickers we would have
I,
sold.
Yep.
I, I was gonna say it's the flip of this, basically.
Yeah. It's basically this was kind of like that same kind of style, just bold. But yeah, it came out recently. It's called Fenway Punk: How a Boston Indie Label Scored Big on Baseball's Greatest Rivalry. You can get it at most bookstores. The Target next to Fenway Park has it. It's available at fenwaypunk.com. And then it's also available at Bridge 9 Records, my record store and record label website. And it's also available at Sully's brand. So, if you like the Red Sox, there's a lot of talk about the 2003, 2004 team. So a lot of people love that era.
Oh yeah.
You know, there's
A lot of nostalgia around that era, especially for people our age.
for sure. I mean, there's a huge amount of nostalgia. That's been the really cool thing hearing from people that have read it is like,
Yeah.
took them back, to
Yeah.
that. And that's for me I feel like I accomplished something, which is very cool.
I think
Absolutely.
there's a strong argument to get this book in the Fenway Park team store. So we'll see. Let's see.
Well,
But I
That's the
do,
next
I
step.
love that.
So so the store is you have the store outside Fenway, you
yeah.
said?
Sully's has a presence in the Target store next to
Okay.
Fenway Park. So it's right on Boylston Street. It's right across the street from where the building that Sully's started. So we started in the basement below a Domino's Pizza and below like next to like the baseball tavern, in the early
R.I.P.
2000s.
Yeah. R.I.P.
Burn all
baseball
that
time.
stuff down. Now there's like big high rises. Thankfully,
Hate to see it.
we've had a long relationship with Target, and they have like a whole section dedicated to Sully's and our brand in that store. So if you go to a Red Sox game, make sure to stop by Target. You can see like a whole section dedicated to our brand, which is very cool. But if you are on the North Shore of Boston, if you're coming up to the Salem, Beverly area, definitely stop by our Sully's brand and Bridge 9 brick and mortar store. So we have like a pretty big storefront that has one side all dedicated to vinyl records. Under Bridge 9, it's mostly punk rock records, but we carry a little bit of everything. We've got the Taylor Swift records, we've got the Rolling Stones records.
Jack's favorite, that Taylor Swift, you know?
Yeah, a little bit of
Swiftie.
everything, right? Because we are a record store on a main street in a small, coastal city. So like we've got a little bit of everything, but we do lean pretty heavy on the punk rock side of the spectrum. And then we have a whole section dedicated to Sully's brand. So we've, it's kind of, become like an immersive space for both brands.
That's awesome. We might have to take a trip up and get a couple
I was going to
North
say
Shore
we got to make
beers.
our way up there.
Yeah,
Cool.
I'm sorry. I'm realizing now. I don't know if we ever asked this part, but who is Sully?
Sully is just the spirit of the of the brand.
Okay.
I mentioned it in the book. I don't know if we'll get some flack for it, but when we used to deal, we had nicknames for everything and everybody. Back then, I mentioned a bunch of them in the book. But when we would be selling T-shirts and we would have particularly drunk and disorderly fans, this is 2001, 2002, we would refer to being hassled by a couple Sullys. Right?
Okay.
Okay. I love that.
The T-shirts we were making were drunk and disorderly.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. It
just
fits.
seemed natural to call them Sully's T-shirts when we started like branding it, and it just stuck.
It worked.
No,
It's
that's
such a
perfect.
Boston nickname. It
Well,
I'm
works.
glad I asked. I realized we got this far and I never even asked who Sully was.
Yeah,
So,
I mean everyone knows.
It's a great question.
It's a familiar thing. So
yeah.
Yeah.
We know about 15 Sullys.
I was gonna say, I'm like, maybe it's about the tavern, maybe it's about the burger place. I was like, maybe it's one of these things, and it'll come up. And I realized I never clarified that. So, thank you. So Fenway Punk, you can get it at any bookstore, but you should probably just go to Bridge 9 in Beverly. And Chris, are you on Instagram, same name, or
Yes,
am I?
Chris B9, short for Bridge 9. So like the letter B, the number 9,
Gotcha.
on Instagram. And then we've got Sully's brand on Instagram and just Bridge 9, Bridge 9 spelled out Nine on Instagram as well.
Any websites?
Sweet.
Yeah, so like sullysbrand.com, we've had forever, Bridge 9, but Bridge with the number 9.com. If you Google any of those, it'll pop right up.
FenwayPunk.com.
Yep, Fenway Punk. That goes to our publisher, but that's great. I mean, I want them to sell books. So,
all right.
Awesome. Yeah, we'll check all that stuff out. Thanks again for coming on. Awesome episode.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure.
I appreciate the
you, Chris.
opportunity. I appreciate you guys being interested and caring and giving me an opportunity to talk about it.
Absolutely. It's a
yeah.
great story. Happy to talk about it with you.
Yeah, and plenty of stories, like plenty of great stories to hear and learn from.
I can't wait to read the book too. I'm definitely going to read it.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about a few of them, but there's a ton of them in here. So
yeah, no, I'm excited.
All right. Well, we'll catch you next time. Thank you.
All right. Thank you.